At 13 local time, hundreds of miles off the Galápagos Islands, the Pacific looked deceptively calm. Beneath that stillness, however, an invisible contest had already begun. High above the waves, a USCGC 130J Maritime aircraft watched a ghost in the sea. A radar returned so faint it flickered in and out like a distant candle in heavy fog. 3 sweeps visible, 9 sweeps gone, then back again. This wasn't a fishing vessel, it wasn't a cargo craft. It was a narco-submarine, crawling north at 8 knots, sitting so low in the water that waves frequently swallowed its entire deck. That speed alone revealed its purpose. Nobody traveled that slowly out here unless they were heavy with contraband and praying the ocean would hide them. Thermal cameras finally stripped away the ocean's illusion. The vessel appeared in infrared as a small smudge riding barely 18 inches above the surface, its fiberglass hull painted ocean gray, designed to disappear beyond half a kilometer. The Galápagos were 400 meters away, but the real concern was 4 hours out. In that time, the boat would reach commercial shipping lanes and vanish among legitimate traffic. The clock was ticking, and mathematics was unforgiving. The closest U.S. Coast Guard cutter, United States Coast Guard Seneca, was 50 miles away, capable of 20 knots on a good day. 2.5 hours to intercept. The smugglers only needed 4 to be swallowed by the sea of civilian vessels. Time favored the criminals, unless the United States took to the air. The scramble at sea. Aboard Seneca, alarms triggered organized chaos. The MH-65 Dolphin helicopter crew rushed toward their aircraft. Rotor blades were still tied down. Ammunition was being loaded. Ocean spray-drenched kneeboards where hastily scribbled fuel calculations danced between hope and realism. The mission was brutal. Fly over 100 miles, stop the sub, hold position for hours until the cutter arrived, then still have enough fuel to land without turning the helicopter into a submarine. Every member of the crew understood the risk. If fuel ran out early, the only landing pad would be the ocean. The gunner checked the M240 machine gun mount, remembering yesterday's battle with salt corrosion. Salt is patient, steel is not, and the ocean always wins eventually. But for now, the machine gun was secured, and hope would have to stand in for durability. Moments later, the helicopter lifted off and cut across the Pacific, its pilot watching the fuel gauge the way a gambler watches his last chips. Every minute of aggressive flying meant 2 minutes lost at the end. The helicopter couldn't afford hesitation. Neither could the nation hunting a floating warehouse of cocaine. First contact. At 14:15 hours, the MH-65 descended toward the ghost vessel, rotor wash exploding against the surface, sending spray and foam in violent spirals. The low-profile narco-sub rocked beneath the pressure like it resented being discovered. The gunner gripped the M240. Time to announce American authority. Except the gun didn't move. Frozen. Seized solid by salt again. The mount was stuck 45 degrees off center. In the cockpit, no time existed for debate. The pilot simply forced the helicopter sideways, holding a dangerous sliding hover at 50 knots to align the jammed weapon with the target. This technique didn't exist in manuals. It existed in necessity. The fuel consumption jumped instantly, slicing precious minutes off their endurance. But stopping the smugglers came first. The first burst of gunfire churned the water 100 meters ahead of the sub. Nothing. Second burst at 50 meters. Still no reaction. The third burst splashed barely 10 meters from the bow, close enough the smugglers likely felt the vibrations through their hull. Finally, the engines aboard the narco-sub died. Silence fell except for the thumping helicopter overhead. The smugglers knew the game was finished. Now came the hard part, holding them until backup arrived. The cartel strikes back. 12 minutes into Overwatch, the helicopter's radar began to pulse with new threats. 2 fast boats approached from the southwest at 40 knots. Protection detail. Cartels don't always escort with kindness, they escort with teeth. The boats began circling 2,000 meters away, a safe buffer just outside effective rifle range. They probed like wolves testing a lone guard dog. One boat darted forward, closing rapidly. The helicopter pivoted toward it and the craft veered away. Then its partner surged in from the opposite direction. It was harassment by timing and angles, designed to split the helicopter's attention and force it into mistakes or fuel burnout. While the pilot balanced flight maneuvers and fuel calculations, the gunner fought the locked weapon with pure muscle. 10 degrees of movement, then nothing. He reset, strained again. Salt won most rounds, but stubbornness kept it fighting. Below, the smugglers lay pinned inside their fiberglass coffin, while their cartel allies tested American resolve. 15 long minutes passed as the helicopter held position, burning fuel at combat power settings, knowing Seneca was still more than an hour away. Eventually, the pilot broke the pattern. He climbed to 500 feet to show he could see all threats at once. Message delivered. The cartel boats turned and fled for international waters. They hadn't rescued their colleagues or recovered cargo, but they had forced the helicopter to burn fuel dangerously fast. A fight against the sea. By the time Seneca crashed through the waves into view, the Pacific had grown restless. 6-foot swells rolled beneath the sky, turning moodier by the minute. Boarding could not wait. Within 1 or 2 hours, conditions would make it impossible. The cutter slowed to 5 knots. Crew prepared the 7-meter rigid-hull inflatable boat, the RIB, that would deliver the boarding team. Lowering that boat into rough water is a dance against gravity and fate. The crane operator counted waves, searching for a brief 4-second window of relative calm. When it appeared, the RIB dropped 6 feet and slammed into the ocean, engines roaring to life. Moments later, it shot away from the cutter, racing toward the narco-sub before the next swell could shove it dangerously toward Seneca's steel hull. The helicopter circled overhead at 200 feet. The pilot read the fuel gauge, 134 gallons left. Enough to witness the boarding, provide overwatch, and return. Barely. The boarding gamble. As the RIB closed in, the coxswain executed what mariners call a controlled collision. At 40-plus knots, he aimed for the sub's midsection, then pulled a hard reverse and pivoted at the last instant, smashing the inflatable collar against the sub and locking both vessels together momentarily as waves lifted and dropped them unevenly. Timing then ruled everything. A 2-second window. One operator leaped, boots hitting slick fiberglass, weapon up, body armor heavy. Balance fought gravity, but he held. One by one, more officers crossed as sea spray slapped the hull. Inside the cramped vessel, the smugglers sat defeated, realizing the ocean had betrayed them. In minutes, they were dragged out and restrained. A final sweep ensured no one else was hiding. Mission complete. Victory in silence. As the helicopter returned to the deck with fuel needles kissing the danger line, the Pacific quieted again. 3 smugglers in custody, a narco-sub seized, millions in cocaine intercepted, and somewhere cartel planners began sketching their next submarine design, convinced innovation could outrun American resolve. But that day, resolve won. There were no headlines. No Hollywood director filmed the moment. Yet this scene plays out year after year across thousands of miles of ocean, where Coast Guard crews improvise when machines fail, gamble fuel against distance, and bet their lives on timing, skill, and grit. This wasn't just a drug bust. It was a battle of math, weather, nerves, and will. A reminder that far from glamorous ports and calm coastlines, a quiet war rages at sea. One fought by helicopter pilots who fly sideways to save a nation, gunners who wrestle rusted steel, and boarding crews who leap onto moving hulls and angry ocean swells. The cartel learned something vital that day. Out here, the United States doesn't blink. And even when the guns jam and the fuel runs thin, the mission continues. Because losing means letting poison travel north unchecked. Out here, a Coast Guard helicopter isn't just a machine. It is a warning, a shield, and sometimes the only line between order and chaos. If you found this story as intense and inspiring as we did, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you never miss these real-life missions from the edge of the ocean. Stay sharp, stay curious.